Hi everyone, this is Lien and welcome back to the Time for Tea Designs YouTube channel. Today I'm featuring the Hogs Kisses stamp set from Time for Tea Designs, and I'm using this adorable pig that is holding the umbrella for the rain. Now today's card and the color combinations that I'm using are inspired by fall because while here in Belgium I don't know how it's where you're living, but here in Belgium, while we are starting to see all those lovely colors outside and leaves are falling, and I just love this season just to look outside and see all those incredible colors. So I started with the image. This is one of the Hogs and Kisses stamp set, and I stamped it out using Gina K Designs Amalgam ink Obsidian black onto Transotype perfect coloring paper. Now I'm using my Copic markers to color this image in, and I'm working my way from darkest to lightest. Now you can do this in many different ways, coloring with your alcohol markers, but I prefer going from darkest to lightest. I also try to have my light source in the center of this image, so that's why I started on the edges doing some flicking and I worked my way towards my lightest color. Personally, I also find it really handy to go over my images at least twice. This gives me most of the time that blend that I really like. Now whenever I need more layers, that's perfectly fine because this paper can handle it, and that's always handy. So if you have some issues with the amount of layers that you need to add and sometimes that your alcohol marker starts bleeding, then it might be the paper that isn't really working for you. So definitely check out other options if you have those issues. Now here you can see that I'm building up again, and it also really helps emphasizing the contrast that I have. Now I'm not doing anything crazy with the coloring of this pig. This combination is quite softly and it goes really quickly because the markers aren't that far from each other when it comes to the amount of color. So that's why it goes really easy. Now it might be that you don't have one of the markers, and definitely try to do a tip to tip before needing to buy it immediately. That might already be the solution for you. Now whenever I go outside the lines, I have my colorless blender to help me fix those tiny mistakes, and that works really well. So it's one of those markers that I have close by all of the time because I just use it on every single card that I create. Now for the umbrella, I had an idea in my head, and so I took these markers based on the more dark colors that we see right now with the autumn and fall happening, but I never used them in this way together, and so the first layer you will see that it is really rubbish. But I personally found that my second layer truly helped with these colors to get them to blend, to get all of them to stand out as I want them to. So that was really fun to experiment with them. So here, let's go again, starting with my darkest, and I'm building my colors up, going towards my lightest. And here you can already see that it works way better, and I don't know what the whole idea behind it is, but it just worked, and I'm really happy that I tried this combination because it was different from what I would usually do. Now for the rain, the small raindrops here and the puddle, I just decided to use a few G's. I didn't color it all the way, I just wanted it to be fluffy, so that's what I did. And then once I was happy with the coloring, I took the matching dies to cut it out. Now for the background, other colors that stand out through fall and autumn are really those red and oranges. Now I already used greens and sort of a bluish green color, so this time for the background I needed those other colors to shine. Now I'm going to use my purple tape to mask off an area. Now you can also use several stencils that are out there that are already shaped into a rectangle or a square or whatever you want to use. But just in case you don't have that, I wanted to show you how simple it can be to use just purple tape. Since I didn't know how long I wanted my scene to be or how much of an area I needed to blend, I decided to not add any purple tape on the bottom. This way I could leave it a square or a rectangle depending on what I needed to blend. I also decided to cover up the edges with some post-its, really simple this way. But next time I will mask it off even further, because the second layer I went way further down, and that's when I went outside of my purple tape and ended up a bit coloring the edges. I fixed it with a sand eraser, but I would have preferred it not to happen, of course. So here I picked out these distress inks that I thought would work really well. So this is Aged Mahogany, Fired Brick, and Wild Honey. And they actually go so well together. I also think it's a lovely combination for Christmas, for example. So just in case. And here I'm doing my second layer. Now this time I went way further down than I did with the first layer. And I'm also using the same blending brush. You can definitely take one for each color you might want to use. But when I try to have a blend, I tend to use the same blending brush just because I just need that lighter color to also blend with the color I used just beforehand. So that it's always handy that you already have some sort of a mix on your blending brush, in my opinion. So that's what I did, and then I fixed the edges there with a sand eraser, as you can see. Now I also wanted my gradient to sort of end up in a white area, just flowing into the white, and I made another mistake. I don't know even how it happened, but again, I fixed it with the sand eraser. And once I removed all the purple tape, I could heat set this panel. I did it without filming that, just because I wanted to white heat emboss my sentiment. And when you do that immediately after blending, that might give you some issues, because the embossing powder will stick on every part of your blended piece that is still wet. So I heat set it, and then I took it to my Misty and used my anti-static powder tool to prep this area. Then I laid down that sentiment, and once I was happy with placement, I used some Versamark clear embossing ink to stamp it out, and then I'm using the Ranger Embossing Powder White Super Fine Detail to add to this sentiment. And then I had to remove still some embossing powder that got lost. And once that was done, I could heat set this sentiment really quickly. And then don't forget to buff off the excess anti-static powder. That will really let that sentiment jump off of your background. I'm going to add my panel to a card base just using some adhesive roller. And then I'm aligning it straight to add to that card base. Next, I'm going to add my image. That one I'm adding using some thin foam squares. These foam squares are truly my favorites. They are from Scrapbook Adhesives. They are really handy. The thickness, it's thin, but it's thick enough to play a bit with dimension, and it's not too bulky to go through mail. So once I cover the back of this image completely, I can remove the backings and just add this cute image on my card. Also handy about these foam squares is that it's really easy to remove the backings. And once the image is adhered, we are going to add some final details, starting with some black Glaze Pen on top of the eyes and the 2 dots on the snout. And then I took some teardrops from Little Things from Lucy's Cards, which are truly amazing embellishments, and I love adding it to some rainy kind of images. So I added a few, and once I was happy with the layout, I adhered them using some liquid glue. It's also really handy to have some sort of an embellishment wand or a quick stick tool to help you get those embellishments in place. I find it really hard to get them in place with my fingers. And I'm really sorry about the baby hairs that are currently on tape. But from time to time we really need to do a bit of hanging over our cards to really see whether placement is right. Now, to go along with the teardrops, I decided to add a bit of glossy accents to those areas where there is water in this image, and I fixed my mistakes by just going with the tip of my tweezers all around. And once I did that, this card is completely finished. It is a really simple card and I truly love how the colors turned out, so I hope you enjoyed this video and of course that you like the end result. Don't forget to follow this channel for more inspiration with Time for the Designs. I hope to see you back soon. Bye!